Next, we're dealt pocket eights in the big blind. The cutoff opens to 80. He's one of the players that I feel I have an edge on. I want to get involved with as many hands as possible with him. This seems to be the strategy for the other pros as well. I call for 60 more. We're heads up. The flop comes 8-3 deuce with 2 spades. We flop top set against the right person at the table. I check with dreams of stacking the opponent. Could be tough. He immediately checks back. He probably doesn't have an overpair or a flush draw, otherwise he might have bet. We'll have to figure out a way to get value out of what's likely 2 high cards. The turn is the 4 of spades. I'm not too concerned about it after a check through previously. I bet 100 to deny equity in case my opponent has a single spade. Maybe I can get calls out of a variety of ace-high hands that at least just picked up a straight draw. The player calls. The river is the ace of clubs. Something interesting happens. The player reaches for chips and bets 300 out of turn. This is very bizarre for this to occur in stakes this high. I'm trying to figure out what to make of it. I'm not sure if this is a genuine mistake or some kind of an angle.
I didn't check, but
my read on what the player's holding is still about the same. There should be almost no 5s in my opponent's range, especially ones that didn't already make a straight. If he was holding ace-5 or 6-5 suited, for instance, he likely wouldn't have immediately checked back the flop with a straight draw. We ruled out flush draws earlier for the same reason. He probably has something like ace-king or ace-queen with 1 spade in his hand, is perhaps trying to name his price, or is faking strength by betting out a turn. Against anyone else at the table, I'd probably call. Against this guy, I raise to 1,000. I've ruled out nearly everything that beats me, and this particular player might be willing to call with worse. He's not even able to follow the action. After a lot of time goes by, the player surprisingly tosses in pocket 5s face up in the middle of the table. He mutters something, but I'm not sure if he folded or called.
What did he do?
He said he folded.
Oh, okay. That's him.
Well, that's unfortunate. A few very strange things happened for me to just about lose the maximum, including a terrible run out and an out-of-turn bet that I imagine wasn't an angle, and likely was more excitement from this player who hit 1 of 3 outs that got him paid, like pocket queens. I'm in middle position. I open to 60. The player with a much larger than average size stack, 3 bets to 200. This is a spot in which I could go either way between 4 betting or flatting. In a game that plays a bit looser, I lean towards 4 betting. Here I flat. We're heads up, out of position. I'm down and not loving the spot. Not to worry though. The flop is queen 10-10. We have a full house and a 3-bet pot. I check to set the trap. I've had about 15 Diet Cokes to help me focus, so I'm trying to keep it all in, but it's tough with how excited I am right now. The hijack down bets to 140. I don't want to scare him off. I call. The turn is the 9 of spades. We still have the second best possible hand. I check again. The opponent increases the sizing to 360. I have about 3,000 total in my stack. What I'm trying to figure out is how I can get all the money in the middle. I put in a small raise to 1,000. Maybe we can get it all in on this street. The opponent calls. Pot will be set up nicely for me to jam river for slightly less than 2,000. Jeff folds and gives me the nice hand pat on the table. I later tell him that I flopped a boat. Keith let me know that he had ace-jack of diamonds. We win a nice pot, but we're still stuck. This is when we kick it up with a round of straddles, and I've got pocket aces. We're playing 10-20-40 with a $20 big blind ante. I raised to 120 in middle position. The big blind calls. He's the opponent that beat me when I had a set of 8s earlier. We're heads up. The flop is king 8-7 with 2 clubs. The big blind checks. It's hard for him to act out a turn this time. I'm not concerned about any turn cards really since I have the ace of clubs. I down bet to 100. The opponent immediately folds. I've been waiting all day for a strong hand in position against him. It finally happens. It's not too lucrative for us though. Shortly after, we pick up ace-king offsuit in the small blind during the same round of straddles. A player in middle position opens to 100. The cutoff, who's been playing tight, 3 bets to 300. He has just over 2,000, essentially about 50 big blinds since the straddle's on. I wouldn't necessarily be fist pump getting it in against him, but I'm more than happy to if that's how the hand works out. I certainly don't want to flat and play a large pot out of position. It will likely be a multi-way pot. I cold 4 bet to 800. We're going to see who really has a hand. I've got about the worst holding that I'll play this way. I'll very rarely be bluffing in this spot, especially against this specific cutoff player. Ultimately, everyone folds. It's another decent outcome. No real battle. We pick up about $500 in profit. I got dealt some strong hands just in time for the straddles. A few hours into the session, we pick up pocket jiggities in the hijack. I'm going to tell you the best story that I have about this hand. The first time that I met Phil Ivey, which was a couple months ago, I asked him to do a joke for the vlog with me about jiggities. He says, "Jiggities? What the hell is that? Sounds like some kind of racist shit. I bet they're blackjacks too." I'm confused and completely caught off guard. I just offended my favorite poker player on the planet, and my immediate reaction is to say, "What? No." He sees that I'm distraught, starts smiling at me, and says, "I'm just fucking with you, dude." He said that doing comedy bits isn't really his thing, but he agreed to do an interview with me that I put on a previous episode. Anyway, Back to the hand, the player on my right opens a 60 from middle position. His name's Kenny. I can reasonably call or 3-bet. I 3-bet to 200. Let's play a big pot in position. Hold on, it's about to get bigger than I anticipated. The opponent 4-bets to 760. Not exactly what I wanted to see. 560 is quite a bit more to call. I almost clawed my way back to even. I don't want to lose a big pot and get stuck piles again. Folding just seems too weak. I called to set mine, or, have the board come with 3 overs. Either one would be totally fine, really. We're heads up in a massive 4-bet pot in a high-stakes game. If you've enjoyed this video so far, hit the like button on the count of 3 for some extra run good. We're going to need it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. The flop is Ace-Jack 4 Rainbow. It's the 3rd time we flopped a set or better. Let's be up against Ace-King one time. The opponent down bets to 500. I'm in another situation where I'm extremely strong and I don't want to scare off worse hands. That's a good problem to have. This is when another guy at the table named Dylan starts filming, so I've synced both angles. By the way, everyone who was in this game gave me their permission to be filmed. People were all super friendly, and we talked about YouTube and a variety of other things quite a bit. Let's hear Dylan's play-by-play.
Kenny bets 500. Bredo right there. He's going for the call. Okay, there's the turn. Action turn. Action turn. Action's on Kenny. Kenny checks with his amazing fingers.
Once Kenny checks with his amazing fingers, I'm in a very interesting spot. There's a small chance that he'll have aces and I'm crushed. He hopefully has ace-king or ace-5 suited, although he probably would have bet again with ace-5, since that's good for 2-pair and is somewhat vulnerable. There's also a strong possibility that he has kings or queens and won't love this board. I'm again trying to determine how to make the most money and ideally get my entire stack in. I don't want to bet much here so that I can keep as many 1-pair hands in as possible, or perhaps give my opponent some rope if he wants to turn whatever hand he has into a bluff. I bet 800. If the player calls, then I'll be set up perfectly to jam river for about 2/3 the size of the pot. Unfortunately, the opponent is at the bottom of his range with what he'd tell me later is pocket queens, and he has to fold.
He throws it in the muck. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant. For the fucking vlog. Look at that. Are you kidding? Fucking set in a 4-bet pot? What is that? It doesn't get any better than that. That's why he's Bredo.
It took a lot of run good, but we're all the way out of the hole that we were in earlier and actually have a nice profit. The player who beat me in the pocket 8's hand picks up, which causes a few others to pick up. All of a sudden, I can't beat anyone in what's become a short-handed game. It's time to head out after playing one of my favorite sessions that I've ever played.